Namaskar, I'm Harpreet Kaur and I welcome you all to our live and interactive session. You're watching us on PM eVidya channels 6 to 12 and also on our YouTube handle NCERT Official. This is our online training program under the umbrella theme of Open Educational Resources OER Innovating Education. This training program is brought to you by CIET NCERT in collaboration with CIMCA, that is Commonwealth Educational Media Centre for Asia. Today we are in day 4 of the training session where the topic that we have taken up is Quality Framework for Open Educational Resources OER. The session is live and interactive as always, so you can always get in touch with us with your questions, suggestions and feedback. Please take down our phone number, which is 8800440559. We also have a dedicated email ID for you, that is training.helpdesk@ciet.nic.in. And since we're streaming live on our YouTube handle NCERT Official, you can always go to the live chat box, put in your questions there, your suggestions and get in touch with our expert instantly. Now, since it's a training program, there is going to be an assessment also. Assessment courses will be released on CIET website. So if you score more than 70%, you will be granted a certificate. As you all know that we have been talking about open education resources. We learned about its need, its evolution, and we also talked about various licenses. It is also important to know about quality frame. We are going to take this entire presentation forward. But sir, before you delve deep into the topic today, I request you to kindly share with us what exactly are the main points you will be covering in the session today.
Okay, so today's session is focused upon the quality framework for open educational resources. In this particular session, we will try to understand first of all that why quality of OER matters, or what kind of points we should consider when we are thinking about the quality.
Okay.
Then there are some frameworks developed by different institutions. So we will also discuss the framework. Then we will go for its importance and the benefits, and sometimes if we are not able to integrate or not use, then limitations. So we will cover these major points in this particular session.
Right, sir. So we are looking forward to this presentation of yours, and if at all we receive questions from our viewers, sir, we will take them in the end. Okay. Now I request you to kindly go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, the very first question we can think for when we are talking about the quality framework for open educational resources, that is that why quality in open educational resources matters. So the very first point is, when you are in this particular thinking that why quality matters, the first point is that we need something which can increase the effectiveness of our educational process, and that is the quality educational resources. And whenever we are talking about resources, then we think for open educational resources. So if we are having quality of OERs, then we can ensure to some extent that our educational process is effective. Then we can also think in terms of the students or the learners engagement and the inclusion point of view, that whenever you are having the quality OER, you can engage the learners in the learning process, and that is why we are thinking to use or to have quality OERs. Then you can also think for the inclusion. That is a big issue nowadays, that how to include everyone in the learning process. If we are talking about the other type of resources which are not OER, then I am not going into the details right now, but you may understand this, that whenever we are not having OERs, it may happen that we exclude someone, or in other way some learners are not included in the learning process due to this costly or the other features of proprietary e-resources. So that is why we need open educational resources to include everyone in the learning process, and the quality of OER can ensure the inclusion. That is why we are talking about today the quality framework for open educational resources. Then there is another important point is that if you are a creative person as a learner or as a teacher or educator, you can think for building something creative, or you can do something with the resource existing. That means either you can create something new or you can build upon the existing one. So, if you are having the OERs, then its feature, we have already discussed these things in detail, that whenever you are talking about OERs, resources can be adopted and adapted. So, that is why the feature of OERs can make the learning interactive, as well as the people can build creative resources or can do something new on the basis of the feature adoption or adoption of OERs. Then another important point is that nowadays we are talking much about the mapping of resources, means we need resource which can be used for a particular topic directly. That means we have to map the resources with the curriculum and the syllabus and the other, you can say, curricular standards. So, this OER is already in that process, that we are having open educational resources which are mapped with the curriculum or the curriculum standards. So, that is why we are talking today the quality framework for OER. And if we are going ahead to understand that what kind of framework is existing for quality of OERs, if you find the different framework, that is not a big thing, or you can say you should not be surprised, because several frameworks are existing nowadays, but I found some of these frameworks are very effective, and one of these, or you can say those, is the TIPS framework, which is developed by SIMCA. I hope all of you have already gone through this particular framework. If not, just explore or just go through this framework. You will find a very interesting point here, that all the dimensions or all the points which are there in the framework are very easy to understand, and you can relate with your teaching learning process as well as the other aspects of educational setting. So, just for the summary, right now we can see the screen that there are 4 major points which are there in this particular framework. Like, first dimension or aspect is the teaching and learning process. That means how we can achieve the quality of open educational resources in line with or in the area of teaching learning process. Then we can also see the second point, which is also very important, and that is content or information. That means the quality should be maintained or should be there in terms of the content which is there in the resource, that means open educational resource. Then we can also think for the another aspect, that is presentation and format, that what kind of presentation, format and product should be there to achieve the quality of the resource. And then last is the system and the technology, what kind of technological features should be there so that we can achieve the quality of resources. So, these are the major dimensions, you can say, or the aspects which may be further discussed in detail one by one, but right now we can see that there are similar other frameworks which can be found if you go to search either on the internet or in the literature, or in the, you can say, books or other means of sources. So, you will find you may find that there are similar other frameworks. So, like for example, if you see the screen, I have mentioned here for just for reference that there is another framework which has again 4 pillars like learning supports, instructional supports, assessment practices and alignment to the curriculum standards and the skill sets. So, similarly we can find another you can say framework, but right now we are going to discuss one of them, and I will choose the first one, that is developed by SIMCA here, to discuss in detail. So, if I go to the first dimension in this particular framework, but before discussing the first dimension, just for reminding to all of us that this particular or this type of framework ensure high quality open educational resources. That is why we are talking today the quality framework. Another important point is before going to discuss in detail dimension wise, that this type of framework is aimed to provide accessible, effective and sustainable learning materials for all stakeholders of education, teachers, students, parents and any other who is associated with the education process. And you can use these type of framework, particularly this framework, for either authoring the OER, that means you are developing OER, or you are reusing, that means if someone is some OER is already there in the field and you want to use it again, then you should also first think about the quality of that particular OER, and that is why we are talking today the quality framework, that how to check or how to ensure the quality of that particular resource. So, now if I go to the point number 1, that is teaching and learning process, there are another point that whenever you are talking about the teaching learning process, it is not just about pedagogy, there are different another or similar kind of things, points, or you can say sub points there in that particular dimension. So, we will go sub dimension wise also. So, if you go to the first sub point or sub dimension, that is pedagogy. So, what kind of point should be kept in mind either by developing or the you can say reusing the OER. The first point is that we should have the study guide, that how to use that particular OER. If suppose one OER you are using and you do not know how to use it, if there is no guideline given with this with that particular OER, it may be you may find some difficulty or some problems in using that particular resource. So, it will be good or it will improve the quality of that particular OER if the guide is there, means some guidelines are written or given there with this with that particular OER. Then not only OER, any resource should use learner centered approach, that means the resource should be for the fulfilling the needs of the learners. It should be based upon the learners needs as well as the requirements. So, that means we should check the OER, either we are reusing or we are developing, that our OER should be learner centered always. Then we should also think about the another important point is that whenever we are talking about the pedagogy, that means teaching learning process in short, that we should use up to date or appropriate and authentic pedagogy in that particular OER, in that particular resource, then only it will be said, or you can say you will maintain the quality of that particular OER. So, appropriate and authentic as well as up to date pedagogy should be there in the resource. Similarly, whenever we are developing or you can say reusing the OER, we should think about the statements or you can say the reasons and purpose of OER, whether it is mentioned in the OER in the resource or not. So, if you are reusing, you should check this whether that particular OER has clearly stated the reasons and purposes of that particular resource, or if you are developing, you should also mention these points in the resource, so that the person who is using that particular OER will be understanding or will be getting the reasons and purposes that why we should use this particular OER. So, that kind of thing should be there in the resource. Then another important point, which is again in similar line, that we should talk about or we should think about the alignment of the local needs. That means the OER should be aligned to the local needs. Local means the context of that particular child or learner for to whom you are considering that he or she will be using that particular OER. Not only the students, but sometimes teachers or the other stakeholders, you can think for the local needs of the stakeholders for you can say whom you are developing that particular OER. So, the point is local needs are important and we should think upon the not only the current needs, but the future needs also. That means sometimes we are feeling that right now this is the need of that particular learner, but maybe in future it may vary. So, we should keep in mind that we should think for the both present need as well as the future needs of the learner or the stakeholders. So, these are the important points when you are talking about the, or you are thinking about the pedagogy subdimension of teaching learning process in the quality framework for OER. Then if we go ahead with the next point, you will find the another important aspect is related to the students. Again, learner is important for us. That is why this point is important to understand that whenever the OER or any resource is to be developed or to be used, we should think about the age group or the level of the intended students or the learners. Means, suppose you are going to create open educational resource for the students who are studying in class 9th or class 10th, but if you are not using the terminology or the using the many other aspects related to the students, which is not the, you can say, level of or at the level of the students for that particular class or that particular age, that means you will not be able to give the chance to the students to use that particular resource to fulfill their needs. So, it is very important to understand that whenever we are developing, we are authoring, or you can say creating any OER, we should keep in mind the age appropriateness, means the age level or the, you can say, the level of that particular learner to be kept in mind. Another important point is that whenever you are talking about the autonomy, the independence or the resilience of the students, that should be reflected through, or you can say it should be kept in mind while you are authoring, you are developing some open educational resources. Why it is important? Because ultimately your purpose is to engage the child or the learner in the learning process. If you are not giving the autonomy to the students, to the learners through this type of resource, then it is not possible to give them chance to engage or to do something with that particular content, or the, you can say, to get the benefits of that particular resource for their learning purpose. So, and independence is also important, because if the child independently can do something with the resource to learn that particular content or topic, which is the main, you can say, point to understand through that particular resource, that is important here. Because if suppose you are using, as a learner, you are using some content or some resource and you depend upon something else or someone else, that means that particular resource is not having the desired quality. That means that resource should be enriched enough to give the independence to the learner to use that particular resource in his or her learning process. Again, the very important aspect is related to the language in this particular dimension of teaching and learning process, that what type of language or what should be the consideration points when you are thinking about the language of the that particular resource. So, the very first point is, not only first, means very important, that it should be gender free. Why? Because we should respect the gender. Not only gender, there are different other aspects related to this type of, you can say, point, that whenever we are using some language to create any resource, it should be free from any biases, either it is gender or region or language or religion or any other, you can say, point. But here I am focusing upon the point is that whatever language is used or you are going to use when you are creating OER, it should be gender free, means gender bias free, as well as it should be very user friendly, because it should be up to the level of the learner. So, if it is not user friendly, that means the learner or the user who will be using your resource, your OER, will not be able to interact with the resource or will not be able to use that resource if it is very difficult for that particular user. So, it should be user friendly and it should be in active voice. So, these are the points. Maybe you will find some more points when you are, if you are a language person, that what kind of points should be kept in mind while you are using language in creating OER, or if you are reusing OER, you should check the OER, that means resource, in that particular line, that the language, whether language is used, in the resource is gender bias free or user friendly or not. Then if we go into the further details, we can find that sometimes the teacher or the person who is teaching or means presenting some idea in the resource, inside the resource, he or she is using very complex sentences, or you can say double negative, or different type of things which are related to the language. So, it is advisable, if you are creating some open educational resource, use simple language, do not use the complex structure of the sentences, do not use the double negatives. So, these are the some few points as an example kind of things, that you should use simple language, or you should use language up to the level of the learners or the intended you can say students or the learners. Then if we go ahead with the main points inside the teaching and learning process, then interactivity is also very important, that you should also think for interactivity feature of the OER, because ultimately the purpose is that the resource should be used to interact or to create discussion further to engage the learner in the learning process. So, if the resource is able to create the interaction, that means that resource is up to the quality standard. So, that is very important. It may be created using different features. When you are talking about the interactive elements, it may be hyperlinks, it may be quiz, it may be many things can be added there to make the resource interactive. So, that is important to understand, that whenever you are thinking to create or you are using OERs, it should be interactive in nature. Then in line with this particular point, when you are going ahead with the interactivity feature, you can think for the real world relevance to the students. Means whatever the task is there, you can think that why this particular task is needed. So, if that kind of point is kept in mind, then you can think for the interactivity feature inside the resource. So, that is why we are here to discuss under the quality framework, that whenever we are thinking for the quality, we should keep in mind all these points. Then motivation is also very important for the students, for you can say using these type of resources in their teaching learning purposes. That means the resource should be able to stimulate the intrinsic motivation to learn. Many a times we go to the you can say internet and we search the resource, but whenever we are using or you can say finding some resource, we found that that particular resource is not motivating me to use it for my learning purposes. So, that means that is not up to the quality or matching the quality standards. So, the point is, if you want to create the quality OERs, the resource should be like that it should be capable to stimulate the intrinsic motivation to learn. And there are different ways of doing this. I am not going into the details of that, but that is the point which we should keep in mind while either you are developing or you are reusing some resource. Then another important point is that you should also keep in mind that whenever you are using the OERs or you are developing some OER, you should monitor the completion rate. Means whether students are using it completely, means they are going from starting to end, whether the students are satisfied, whether the students are recommending that particular OER to the other learners. That is the point which we should keep in mind. while either developing or reusing. So, if suppose one student or one learner who is using some OER, if he or she is recommending that OER to the other learner, that means it is or you can say that that particular resource is meeting the quality standards. That is why the person is recommending to the others. And then you can also think for some elements, or you can say some points inside the resource which can be used for self assessments kind of thing, like you can use multiple choice questions, you can use some other type of test which can be used for comprehension or other aspects. But point is whether that particular resource is able to do that or not. So, if you are creating, then you should include all these points. If you are reusing some OER which is already developed by someone else, then you should assess the resource in that particular line, or you can say dimension. Then you can also think for the points which are related to the students and teachers, that they should give feedback and suggestions to improve that resource. Suppose if that particular option is not there, then what will happen? Whatever the resource is developed, if something is not good or something is not up to the level or up to this, you can say, quality standard, and you are not giving the option for the feedback or the improvement suggestions, then it will not you cannot improve the quality of that particular resource. So, that point should also be kept in mind, that we should always open to improvement or to get the suggestions to improve by the users. So, if you are developing the OER, then you should give this, or you should keep this option or this point in your OER, that you can get the suggestions, feedbacks to improve the OER. Or if you are using some other resource which is already developed, then also check whether there is a or there are some points or some options to give the feedbacks or suggestions for improvement or not. Then similarly, you can also think for the support which are there in the resource, which can again improve the OER. So, that kind of things are related with the teaching learning process. That means all these points should be there or should be kept in mind while we are developing the teaching learning resources, particularly OER, and we are thinking in line with the teaching learning processes. Another important dimension which is there in the quality framework which is developed by the CIMCA, very important dimension is information and content, that what type of content is there in the resource. So, if you are thinking about the quality framework and you are going to understand this particular dimension, the very first important point is the accuracy, which is very important. It is not only for the OER only. If you are using any resource, you cannot compromise with the errors, particularly the content errors or factual errors. So, you should be very vigilant when you are using or reusing any OER, that it should be free from any kind of conceptual error or the factual error. So, the point is that whenever you are developing or you are reusing the OER, it should be accurate. It means the content, the knowledge, the information inside the OER should be accurate, should be up to date, should be reliable. So, there are different points which are there, but very important is the accuracy. That means we cannot compromise any error in the you can say content which is either conceptual or factual. Then it should also, the content, we are talking about the content right now, which is there in the resource, that it should be able to support equality, equity, it should promote the social harmony, it should be socially inclusive, and very important is that it should be non-discriminatory, means there should not be any single statement, there should not be any single word which is discriminatory to anyone in any aspect. So, whenever you are using any resource or you are creating any OER, you should be very vigilant, or you should be very careful whenever you are using some words, you are using any content, any information, it should be free from any type of discrimination. It should be very accurate, it should be reliable, it should be up to date. So, this type of even not only the accuracy, if it is very important to make the resource which is capable to promote the social harmony. Nowadays it is very important to keep in mind that our content, our resource should be capable to promote social harmony. That is the need of the hour. Then another important aspect in relation to the content or information inside the OER is the relevance, that it should be relevant to the purpose for what you are developing or you are creating the OER. Suppose you are using or you are creating some OER for achieving a particular educational objective, and if that particular objective is not achieved, what is the meaning of that particular resource? Then you should keep in mind that whenever you are reusing or suppose you are creating the OER, it should be relevant to that particular content or the topic or the educational objective which you have kept or you have planned in your you can say mind to create that particular resource. In addition to that, if you think for you can say relevance, you can also think that we should avoid the content or the you can say points which are superfluous or distractors kind of things. If something is there which can distract the mind of the learner, that means it is not relevant. So, the focus of the content should be very clear, and you should keep all the content, all the information, all the points inside the resource which should not distract the mind of the learner from the point or from the topic or from the educational objectives. Again, it may be repeating kind of things for you, but that is important again, that whenever we are talking about the content or the information inside the resource, it should be authentic, it should be internally consistent, that means it should be logically connected. That means, for example, sometimes we find that we are reading some text or some you can say material, and after first paragraph we are jumping to the or we are going to the next paragraph and there is no link in between. So, that kind of disconnections should not be there, either in terms of the text or in terms of the graphics or in terms of the images. Whatever material, whatever content you have used inside the OER or you are planning to use inside the OER, it should be logically connected, it should be you can say well planned. So, that means it should be internally consistent and it should be appropriately localized. That means it should be fulfilling or achieving the local needs. That is why we are saying that it should be relevant to the purpose as well as to the learners or to the you can say stakeholders which are the intended stakeholders for that particular resource. In line to that, we can encourage the students through this OER to create localized content for their situated learning, means whatever situations, whatever context they have, they can do something. If you are creating the OER in that way that students can do something, can be able, or so you can say there is a point there that students can do something to input their localized content, or even you can keep in mind while you are creating that the localized situation or you can say context should be there in the resource, so that students can link with their local or localized kind of things, means their context inside the resource. In line to that, we can also keep in mind that whenever we are talking about the localized kind of things or the context, that means that we are talking about the students previous knowledge or the experiences they are having. That means whatever they are knowing previously, or means they are having some experiences due to the local context or due to the their background or their, you can say, context, they can link those things or those experiences when they are using that OER. So, if the OER is capable to link those kind of experiences with the content, that means it is achieving the quality standards. So, that kind of things, even nowadays we are talking much about the indigenous knowledge which is there in the you can say local field, which can be linked with the resource or with the content inside the resource. So, that is why we are focusing much about the indigenous knowledge nowadays, and we should keep in mind while we are developing any OER or we are using any OER, that it should be linked with the indigenous knowledge of that particular context, or you can say local areas. Then another important point is that when we are talking about the OER, it should be compact in size while using or creating any OER, because whenever it will be used by the users, if it is not compact, means if the size is very large, then you will not be able to use it in you can say at mass level. So, that is why we are suggesting, or this quality framework is suggesting, that the content, the OER should be compact in size, and it should be standalone, means it should not be dependent upon any platform. That will also be discussed in further you can say dimension when we will talk about the technology and the system. Right now we are focusing upon the content. So, the content should be compact in size, it should not be overloaded, and it should be very crisp, very you can say comprehensive whenever we are thinking about the topics or information or the content inside the OER. There may be some if suppose sometimes you are feeling that I should include this, but if I include all these points it will be overloaded, then there is another way for reducing the size of the content, that you can give the links of the materials. Like for example, if some documents are very important to understand that particular point, you can just give links, not the you can say the same content should be included inside the resource. So, that kind of things can be done while creating the OERs, if we want to achieve the quality standards of the resource. Another important point related to the content is the openness. That means the content should be the license which you are using for creating the OER should be very much open, and it should be mentioned in the resource itself, that this particular resource is declared or published under open licenses. Then openness does not mean only the license. This particular resource should also be capable to engage the child in the resource, means to learn something, as well as it should be accessible to anyone. Suppose you are creating some resource and you are keeping that resource inaccessible, that means it is not OER, or it should not be like that. So, the resource should be very much accessible and it should be engaging. Another point is that whenever we are talking about the open educational resources, we should be giving the acknowledgement of the original author if we are developing something on the basis of other resource, or if we are reusing, then also it is important. So, acknowledgement or the you can say information of the original author should be clearly mentioned or given in the OER. Then you should also be very much clear while you are talking about or thinking about the openness of the OER. That means it should be, this material should be coherent, this material should be taking care of the quality standards, whatever we are talking right now. Then another important point related to the content is that what should be the design format, means what kind of design should be used while you are developing the OER. like for example, sometimes you are using some design or some you can say format that is attractive for the learners, while using that particular resource. If you are using the white space and the colors which are in combination to the you can say contrasting or something, ultimately the point is, if you are having some design which can stimulate learning process, which can make the students very much comfortable, very much you can say motivating to use that particular resource for the learning process or learning purposes, that means the design used in that OER is very much up to the level of the quality standards. There are different points which can be discussed inside, like you can think for the space, for the you can say the arrangement of the elements inside the framework, in the frame which you are using for that particular resource, and like that. So, that the design is very important while you are creating some OER, some resource. Another important point for the content is that you are also keeping in mind the format, that for example, if you are using, if you are creating some OER, whether it can be printed or not, whether it is just digital or it can be used in both ways, means in different ways. It may be digital, it may be used as a printout, or it may be used as a you can say offline kind of resource. So, it depends upon the formats you have used for creating that particular open educational resource. And it is not only for printing or non-printing kind of things, it may be you can say used for the delivery of that particular resource, means it should be open in terms of platforms. That means you can use anywhere that particular resource, it should be independent from the platforms, that kind of thing should be there. And very importantly is that whenever you are creating some resource, you should be very clear the sequence or the place of that particular resource in the trajectory, or you can say in the pathway of the learning process, that whether it should be used before the another resource or it should be used after the another resource. So, that kind of clarity should be there in that particular OER, or you can think for these kind of things while you are creating some OER, that where you can use it, whether it should be before or after the other resources. The another important dimension in this particular framework is that what kind of technical or technological point should be kept in mind. So, the very first point is that this whether this particular OER is discoverable or not. So, how to think for that, or how to know about this, or how to check this point is you can use metadata, or you can check the metadata of that particular resource, because whenever you are creating some OER and you are using some information, or you can say creating the metadata, that will make it more discoverable. So, if you are creating, you should keep in mind to use all these metadata, or if you are using, then you should check. So, in metadata there are different information, there are different tags, different points which can be there in metadata to make this particular OER is more discoverable. Then you should also think upon the technology itself, that what kind of technology is used to create, or you are going to create the OER. Like for example, whether it is free and open source software, or it is just free software, or it is you can say some other type of technology. So, it should be very much clear to you, as well as you should also check these points. So, whenever we are talking about OER, we should go for free and open source software, particularly to create open educational resources. So, that is the point related to the technology. Another important point is that whenever you are going to use these type of technology, it should be very much capable to create OERs which can be easily portable, means you can use anywhere those resources which are created using these free and open source software or technologies, that means open technologies. So, the resource which is developed with the help of FOSS or open technologies should be portable, should be transmissible, should be able to keep offline also. If you are keeping all these resources offline, that means you can use anytime, anywhere, irrespective of the technology used for creating that particular resource. Even we can think for the you can say learning or teaching academic point of view, that whenever you are using this type of technology or this type of you can say open technologies to create OER, it should be able to be used in the student's e-portfolio, and that means whenever the person or the student or the learner is creating something using these open technologies and creating the resources, particularly OER, he or she can arrange or use or kept, or you can say take away from that particular platform and use or you can say save in his or her portfolio, which may be some platform again, which may be some website again, where he or she can use that particular resource to create his or her own e-portfolio. So, that kind of point should be kept in mind. And the last point is related to this is that we should also think for the date of production, date of next revision. If you are thinking to create some versions of that particular OER, then you can mention all these points inside the resource. So, these are the points which are related to the quality framework for open educational resources. Before completing, or you can say before concluding all these points, if you are thinking for the other aspects which can be the you can say dimensions or points related to the you can say quality inside the framework, maybe you will not find these points inside the quality framework which is developed by CIMCA, but here I would like to highlight these some points, like for example, it should be based upon universal design. Nowadays we are talking much about the inclusion. So, if you are talking about the inclusion and you are creating some resource, you should think for universal design, means it should be compliance with the standards which are there in the field. I am not going to detail, you can say discuss in details all these standards, but the point is whenever you are creating some OER or you are reusing some OER, it should be in compliance with the standards laid down by different government institutions or the bodies, and it should be accessible for all users. So, when it will be possible? It will be possible if you are having the universal design for that, you can say to develop the OERs. Then it should be multimodal, that means the resource, it should be it is advisable that whenever you are creating some OER, it should include or it should be based upon different type of media, like it may include text, it may include audio, it may include video and many more things, so that it can cater the needs of all the learners, whether the you can say the learners who are learning with the you can say audio or video or text or any other you can say media. Then it should be, again maybe it is repeating, but very important here, that we should avoid all biases related to anything, particularly the which are sensitive in you can say nature, and we should also respect the diversity, cultural diversity and language diversity, as well as the other type of you can say diversity, because the India is, I think all of us very much knowing that we are having multiple diversity, or you can say diversity is our strength. So, that is why we should respect the different type of diversities in creating or in using the OERs. Another important point is that we should also think for the legal and ethical standards or the dimensions like copyright compliance, data privacy and attribution and citation. All these points are maybe knowing, means you are already knowing, but these are the points which are important to keep in mind while you are either creating or using the OERs, and these points if you keep in mind you can achieve the quality of OERs. There may be some other points. I am thinking that we should now go for the question answer if any in the you can say chat box or whatever means we are having for getting the questions.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Dr. Ali, for throwing light on quality framework for open education resources. Of course, we learned a lot. You're right that we have diverse learners, we have diverse learning styles, and we need to take care of the content that we are actually releasing, and we need to be sensitive also about the same. Now, we have received a few questions, though we are left with very little time, so I won't be able to take many questions. But this is one very important question which I believe it's about the feedback and the reviews. So I want to ask you, how can user feedback and reviews be used to improve the quality of OER?
Yes, it is very important to understand that whenever we are creating some OER and we are using it, maybe sometimes you are using it independently, means without using any platform, or sometimes you are using some platforms to use that particular resource in teaching, learning or any educational purpose. So if you are using any platform, that platform itself can give you the options for giving the feedback or suggestions. Even the content which is there inside the OER can have this particular feature for asking to the users that you can give the feedback. Like for example, very live example is that in this particular session we are also demanding or saying that you can give the feedback and suggestions to us either through email, either through chat, either through any other you can say way we whatever we are using here right now.
Right.
So similar way can be there in the resource also. So there are different ways. It is not possible to explain everything here right now, but yes, there are ways to get the feedback and suggestions from the stakeholders, from the users.
So thank you so much, Dr. Ali, for your contribution to the session. It was indeed
very
informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So viewers, here I am wrapping up this session of ours, and it was on day 4 titled Quality Framework for Open Education Resources OER under the umbrella theme of Open Educational Resources OER Innovating Education. With this, I am closing this training session for today, but here are some important updates for you. Let's talk about textbooks first. Yes, textbooks for grade 4 and 7 are now available on Amazon, Flipkart and NCERT website. Please purchase your copies from there, and simultaneously you can take a look at what's coming ahead. So in a short while from now, you can watch our session Sahyog, where we will be talking about something very important, and it's all about academic success and maintaining a healthy balance. So please make sure you participate in the session with your questions, suggestions and feedback. With this, it's a wrap. This is me, Harpreet Kaur, taking leave of you. Namaskar.